Okay, we're going to take a look here at one possible way that we could integrate a GMRS emergency communication system with the existing amateur radio group's emergency communication system. There's a lot of different ways that we could go about doing this, and this is just one of them. So, if nothing else, maybe it'll prompt some discussion. I think it's a key thing to remember in emergency planning that the initial need in an emergency isn't food, water, and shelter, it's information. If something unexpected happens, or even if it is expected, like a winter storm or a band of tornadoes or whatever, the first thing you need is information to find out what happened, where is it happening, what you need to know in order to make the best decisions for you and your family. So that's kind of the whole purpose of this, and it assumes that, at least the approach we took, is that our assumption was that the um, infrastructure was down. The electric power is off, the cell phones don't work, and the internet's not available. And so we looked at it from, okay, from that situation, what do we need to do to be able to communicate amongst ourselves and figure out what's going on. So back in 2017, there were about 10 of us, the Sportsman's Club, that got together to discuss emergency preparedness, and all of us had done some things to prepare individually. But then when we started to look at what would happen, how would we communicate with each other in the event of a major shutdown of the infrastructure, none of us had really given that any consideration. So that's when we investigated the different types of radio communications and decided to pursue the amateur radio approach. And you'll see some reasons why we went that route here shortly. So in 2017, by my count, we had 3 amateur radio licensees in Treasure Lake. The first 10 of us got our licenses and started working on our equipment and the systems. And we also started doing study groups to help other people get their licenses. And as at this point, this being the early part of 2025, we have about 40 licensed amateur radio people in Treasure Lake with varying degrees of equipment and capability and those types of things. But we do have quite a few people that have the license and capability to use this system. So what I want to do is kind of show you a framework of how the amateur radio group at the Sportsman's Club system set up. The heart of our system is a UHF repeater, and this is a device that is used for handhelds and mobile radios, that it will receive the signal that you're transmitting and retransmit it at a higher power and from a better antenna, giving you extended range so that other people can hear you, say, on the other side of the hill. It's 2 ways, so they can communicate with you. And our repeater is located at the Treasure Lake Church. As you're driving past the church on Bay Road, going out to the back gate, you'll see it sticking out of the top side of the building. It's a wide antenna, and that's what a amateur radio UHF repeater antenna looks like, and that's what a GMRS antenna would look like. So, like I said, the purpose of the repeater is to allow 2-way communications between different individuals that are equipped with the radios, and I'm showing examples here of handhelds and mobile and base radios, so that when we use the repeater, rather than talking directly from one radio to another, we're going through the repeater to give us broader coverage, and we're able to pretty much cover Treasure Lake and the surrounding area into Du Bois, Rockton, out on the interstate. So we've got a pretty good footprint on that. The red lines are two-way communications. The green line is showing a feature of the radio laws in that anybody can listen to any signal in the air without a license. The reason you need a license is if you want to transmit. So there are ways that you can listen to our repeater if you were interested in doing that in a time of an emergency by having a scanner that has UHF capability and putting our frequency in it. Or we sell little Baofeng handhelds that are receive only, that you could monitor our repeater and a few other things with it. So that's kind of the heart of our system, but this just we're constrained to communication within, say, a 10-mile radius of Treasure Lake. You can probably get a little farther some places, but generally it's all local communication. So what we wanted to do was to be able to communicate around the state, around the region, the adjacent states, even across the whole U.S. And that was the reason we went with amateur radio rather than GMRS, because with the amateur radio license, you're able to use frequencies and bands that give you the capability of communicating long distances, regional, state, nationwide, or even worldwide. And we found that we're able to communicate all over the U.S. into Europe with antennas that are nothing more than a pair of wires up in a tree, and get good two-way communications that way. So we have several, probably 8 or 10 hams that have HF stations that have this capability of long-distance communication. And they're also tied into the repeater because they have, most of them have a base station that operates on UHF on this network, so that people can communicate with the outside world, both sending and receiving information, and then pass that information through our repeater to people inside of Treasure Lake. And then the people inside of Treasure Lake that can transmit through the repeater can send information to the people with the HF stations for the long distance communication, and then these stations could contact, for example, the Red Cross or Pennsylvania Emergency Management Agency, those types of things. So it gives us the ability to communicate outside of Treasure Lake a significant distance. So the way we would look at, or could look at, setting up a GMRS system is, with this being the ham radio system here, we could build a GMRS system that is structured exactly like the local communications system here, and then people with the GMRS radios could communicate amongst themselves with the other people with GMRS radios. And they could also, with these ham stations having GMRS radios in addition to their ham radios, they also would be able to communicate with the GMRS people, so that any information that needs to go into or out of Treasure Lake would not only be passed amongst the ham network, but it'll also pass to the GMRS network. So essentially anybody that had ham or GMRS capabilities would be able to stay in communication with the emergency communication system in Treasure Lake and hopefully know what's going on. So that's kind of the thought there, just to kind of look at one thing you'll hear about, people talk about in radio, they'll talk about a net. And a net is nothing more than a group of radio operators getting together at the same time and the same frequency on the radio and to conduct a meeting. And there's a lot of different reasons to have a net. Two that we do, for example, with the Sportsman's Club Ham group is that on Monday nights at 8 p.m. We have what we call the Monday Night Net, and what it is people get on the radio, and an individual will be net control, and they'll call a roster of the stations in Treasure Lake, and that gives the chance for, if you had a radio set up, if you wanted to check and make sure it was working, you could check your radio at that point. Another net that we have is an emergency net, and that would be used really only 2 times, obviously one in an emergency, but we do have occasional drills where we practice some of these things. And the primary focus on the emergency net is to monitor information both on the outside and inside Treasure Lake and pass it along to everybody so that people can be informed of what's going on. And one of the first things that's done in an emergency net is that we establish, right now we have 6 different frequencies that we monitor, like to monitor in an emergency situation. I'll go over those in a second. But that's one of the first things that happens when we start the emergency net. These frequencies will be assigned to stations for monitoring. So the 6 that we're looking for are shown here, and you need the HF stations, the long distance stations, in order to monitor them. And for example, we've got W3CPA is a VHF repeater. The GMRS are UHF bands, and this repeater is operated by the 911 center in Clearfield. So that's the primary purpose of this repeater, is to operate in emergency situations. So that's the first one we want to monitor. So one of the people that's set up to do the HF and the local communications would be assigned W3CPA to monitor. And then the Pennsylvania Emergency Management Association has an auxiliary communication system that is a network of amateur radio operators, and they divide the state up into 3 sections. There's the Western, Central, and Eastern. And they also have a frequency for statewide PEMA, amateur radio communications. So we assign someone to monitor this frequency, and then the central frequency. So the first one's the Western, and then the central PEMA area, and then the statewide. And then there is a form of communication that can be done with the HF radios that is a digital mode, and what that enables us to do is to be able to send text communications, keyboard to keyboard. You can run email without the internet. You can transfer data files without the internet. And a lot of the non-government organizations like the Red Cross and some hospitals use this to transfer information when things are down. So we would have someone assigned to monitor this. And then there's another group, let's see which, here it is, ARES, the Western Pennsylvania ARES VoiceNet. This is primarily for non-government organizations, served agencies like the Red Cross, hospitals, and those kind of things. So we would have somebody assigned there. So what will happen then is if something comes through any of these frequencies, then the person monitoring that can contact net control through the local repeater and announce what's there. So this just shows you go through this kind of quickly. The 911 center in Clearfield County is this frequency, and then the PEMA frequencies that ties into the Pennsylvania Auxiliary Communication Service are these frequencies. And you can see they have both a frequency on one band. You probably won't understand what this is, but these bands operate differently at different times of the day, so they have alternate bands to go to. This is what a screenshot of the computer that's running the digital communications would be. You can see you've got like a text message coming through. There are email drivers, programs that can be used to send emails back and forth and those types of things. And then the areas section has the non-government agencies, the served agencies like the Red Cross and hospitals and such. They also have a primary and an alternate frequency where traffic is passed and information. So what that enables us to do then is that once we get that emergency net up, and it just takes a few minutes to make the assignments, then we've got stations on each of those frequencies monitoring and reporting into this group so everybody knows what might be going on the outside. And I think this might be my last slide. So let's see. If it is, that'll do it.